Namo Amidabu. Introduction by Gansen John Welch. I wrote these 4 new poems to thank and honor my teachers, Reverend Josho, Adrian, Cirlea, and Paul Roberts, as well as our Amida Dharma masters, Nagarjuna, Vasubandhu, Tan-Luan, Daochuo, Shandao, Genshin, Honen, and Shinran, without whom I could not have found and understood, in my case to some small extent, Amida Dharma and my utter helplessness trapped in the endless suffering of samsara. Never forget these wise words from Tannisho by Yuienbo. Quote, as I humbly reflect on the past, when the late Master Shinran was alive, and the present in my foolish mind, I cannot but lament the divergences from the true shinjin that he conveyed by speaking to us directly, and I fear there are doubts and confusions in the way followers receive and transmit the teaching. For how is entrance into the single gate of easy practice possible unless we happily come to rely on a true teacher whom conditions bring us to encounter? Let there not be the slightest distortion of the teaching of other power with words of an understanding based on personal views. End quote. I hope that these verses help others and motivate them to find a good teacher like Reverend Josho, Adrian, Cirlea. Listen deeply to Amida Dharma and think and say, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, Amida Buddha. Homage to Amida Buddha. I take refuge in Amida Buddha. The Express Train by Gansen John Welch. In samsara, we're traveling on a train that never stops until we die. But does our tormented brain ever ask the real reason why? Karma is the implacable driver, and there are no survivors. The train tracks lead us with express speed, inevitably from birth to death. No thoughts, words, or deeds can save us from our fear, anger, and greed. And with every heartbeat and breath, we come closer to the moment that we all dread. But we focus only on getting our daily bread. Let us instead heed the warning of Shinran before it is too late, as we hurtle helplessly to our destination and fate. Only the Nembutsu can free us all from samsara and the endless suffering caused by evil karma. Give thanks to Amida Buddha and his great Dharma. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, Amida Buddha. Homage to Amida Buddha. I take refuge in Amida Buddha. These verses were inspired by the following passages from pages 42 to 46 in Reverend Josho Adrian Cirlea's book, Jodo Shinshu Buddhist Teachings. Quote, this wonderful teaching on the absolute reliance on Amida Buddha is not just another Buddhist method in the 84,000 Buddhist teachings, but the most important teaching among all Shakyamuni's teachings. Shinran said in the second verse of Shoujo Matsu Wasan, the teachings that Shakyamuni left behind have all passed into the Naga's palace. This means that all other Buddhist teachings are no longer effective during these times. To pass into the Naga's palace means exactly this, not being effective or only being as good as non-existence. Shinran is even more clear. Quote, although we have the teachings of Shakyamuni, there are no sentient beings who can practice them. Hence, it is taught that in the last Dharma age, not a single person will attain enlightenment through them. End quote. Not a single person will attain enlightenment through them is a very strong statement. Not a single one. This should be very well heard and understood. Not a single person can effectively practice the Buddhist teachings other than the reliance on Amida Buddha. Shinran said it clearly for those who are ready to hear it. Quote, without entrusting themselves to the Tathagata's compassionate vow, no sentient beings of these times, the last Dharma age, and the fifth 500-year period since Shakyamuni's passing, will have a chance of parting from birth and death. End quote. Shinran's words leave no trace of doubt about what we have to do. There is no other Buddhist method which can guarantee Buddhahood so quickly without asking anything from the practicer. All the nice discourses and practices of other schools through which they claim that everybody can become a Buddha in this very life are good in themselves, but they are not effective for this age and for the people living in it. So they are as good as non-existent, gone into the Nagas palace. In front of the two rivers of fire and water, with death and danger waiting to strike at every moment, and the rare chance of having another human life so hard to find, Shinran is interested only in showing us the path to escape from birth and death, and he clearly sees no other way than in trusting in Amida Buddha. All other methods are not real, or they are ineffective. Shinran calls us to awaken and not lose the precious time we have. This is a burning house and not a place for unimportant talks and doctrines. He is clear in his explanations, like a doctor who prescribes exactly what a patient needs to save his life. He says something like, "Do you want to escape birth and death? If you do, then this is the way to follow, and no other. Entrust in Amida Buddha and in no one else." It is Shinran's message to a terminally ill world in the last Dharma age, a world that needs the best medicine ever to be found in all religious history. But for those to whom birth and death is the most important matter and realize their true capacities, the clear message of Shinran and his way of rejecting that which is not true or effective and selecting that which is true and useful is all they need to hear. So, dear friends, make a choice. Escape this burning house or remain inside it, spending your time with false or futile practices. It's your decision. No one can make it for you. Namo Amida Bu. Faith or Shinjin by Gansen John Welch. As politicians and other parasites proliferate and thrive, many desperately struggle to survive. Karmically controlled human beings in samsara are exploited, enslaved, and impoverished. Their sole solace and refuge is Amida Dharma, and only Amida's primal vow can bring the complete cessation of all suffering. Farmers feed and doctors heal, but only Amida Dharma can cure completely all our endless ills without using any potions or pills, and bring us all to Amida's land that is pure. Only the Nembutsu is real. All else is powerless, futile, and worthless. Listen deeply to Amida Dharma and the explanations of true teachers. This is the only way to nirvana. So avoid self-power and false preachers, and think and say, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, Amida Buddha. Homage to Amida Buddha. I take refuge in Amida Buddha. This poem was inspired by the words of Master Renyo, quoted by Reverend Josho Adrian in his excellent book, The Meaning of Faith and Nembutsu in Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, pages 150 to 153. Quote, regardless of our doubts, if we listen intently with our entire being, we will be given shinjin because of great compassion. The Buddhist teaching begins and ends in hearing. End quote. Josho provides further explanation and clarification. So in our tradition, listening to the teaching is the most important practice. You have to listen again and again, and one day you will become open enough so as to entrust completely to Amida Buddha. The words, we will be given shinjin because of great compassion, shows that shinjin comes from Amida, as I explained in the previous chapter. But the first part, if we listen intently with our entire being, shows what we have to do if we wish to receive the gift of faith from Amida. There is a good poem by Jason Rannock, an American Pure Land follower, on this. Quote, uncover your cup to receive the Dharma rain, then faith and the Nembutsu will naturally arise. End quote. If one does not listen deeply to the teaching, but is filled with ideas of self-power or keeps oneself under the influence of various non-Buddhist religions, he cannot receive shinjin, nor say the genuine nembutsu, which is the natural manifestation of shinjin. Faith and nembutsu are not forcibly imposed in our hearts by Amida Buddha. So if someone does not show interest in the Buddhist teaching, and especially in the teaching about the primal vow of Amida, he cannot receive shinjin. Here are some examples of listening deeply to Amida Dharma. Think that solving the matter of repeated births and deaths is the most important thing in your life. Put aside all other Buddhist or non-Buddhist teachings, philosophies and opinions, and listen, remember reading is also listening, only to Amida Dharma. Put aside what you think you know and listen to what Amida Dharma has to say. Empty your cup or your mind of your so-called personal wisdom, and stay open to receive the nectar of Dharma. Consider that you know nothing, and that Amida Dharma knows everything. Read the most simple and essential text of our school. Listen with a devotional mind and heart. Listen again and again, that is constantly, in the manner described above. Ask questions if you have doubts, or if there's something you don't understand. Study the answers carefully and without hurry, and ask again if you need to. Engage in a Dharma dialogue, not debates, with people who are already established in faith and who do not embrace wrong views. Think on the testimony of Shakyamuni Buddha himself and of so many wonderful masters like Nagarjuna, Vasubandhu, Shandao, Honen, Shinran, Renyo, etc., who accepted the existence of Amida Buddha and the reality of his salvation. Always ask Amida Buddha for guidance, bow to him, and say his name, even if you are not yet established in faith. No matter how many doubts you have, or how awkward it might be at the beginning, find some time to sit with Amida Buddha and ask him for guidance. Give a chance to the idea that he and his salvation are real. You really have nothing to lose if you accept Amida's salvation. On the contrary, you have everything to gain. You will be born in the Pure Land at the end of this life and become a Buddha. Your suffering and the repeated births and deaths will be over, and you will be capable of truly helping others, especially your dear ones. Please also meditate on what you have to lose if you do not accept the existence of Amida Buddha and the reality of his salvation. The chance you now have to be in a human body and listen to Amida Dharma might not be met in thousands and thousands of lives. So just give it a try and do the above things for some time. Namo Amida Bu. Freedom by Gansen John Welch. We are creatures of karma, creations of our thoughts, words and deeds, from all our lives during the infinite past. When will we at long, long last awaken from our nightmares of endless suffering and cares and realize that what we truly need is the priceless treasure of Amida Dharma, the only cure for the sickness that is unenlightened life in samsara. This Saha realm is ruled by fear, ignorance and attachment. To all that is false, illusory and impermanent, only the Nembutsu can free and bless us from our delusions and confusions, leading us infallibly to nirvana, as Amida promised it would, and the eternal bliss of Buddhahood. Let us all thankfully think and say, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, Amida Buddha. Homage to Amida Buddha. I take refuge in Amida Buddha. These verses were inspired by the writings of Shinran and a passage quoted by Reverend Josho Adrian Cirlea in his excellent book, The Meaning of Faith and Nembutsu in Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, pages 135 and 136. Quote, when I humbly contemplate the going forth aspect of Amida's merit transference, I realize that there are great practice and great faith. The great practice is to call the name of the Tathagata of unhindered light, that is, Amida Buddha. This practice contains all good and roots of virtue, and is perfectly accomplished and most efficacious in bringing about liberation. It is the treasure sea of merits of true suchness, ultimate reality. For this reason, it is called great practice. This practice comes from the vow of great compassion, the 17th vow, which is called the vow that the name shall be glorified by all the Buddhas. It is also called the vow that the name shall be praised by all the Buddhas, and the vow that the name shall be lauded by all the Buddhas. Further, it can be called the vow accomplishing the going forth aspect of merit transference, and also the vow of the Nembutsu chosen from among many practices. Concerning the vow that the name shall be praised by all the Buddhas, the larger sutra states, if, when I attain Buddhahood, innumerable Buddhas in the lands of the 10 directions should not all praise and glorify my name, may I not attain perfect enlightenment. The larger sutra also states, when I attain Buddhahood, my name shall be heard throughout the 10 directions. Should there be any place where it is not heard, may I not attain perfect enlightenment. The sharp sword for cutting asunder our ignorance, its effect, and the karmic cause of suffering and samsara is Amida's name. With a single utterance of the name, all our evils are removed. End quote. Josho explains and clarifies the above words from Shinran and the sutras in the following passage. Amida's name has in itself the power to cut our evil karma which keeps us prisoners in samsara. In the last passage quoted above, the name is first mentioned as the cause of liberation, and then the utterance of the name, that is, Namo Amida Butsu. This means that the utterance of the name has the effect of liberating us from birth and death, because the name is the power of Amida, not because we say it. This aspect is extremely important. Of course we must say it, in order to submit ourselves to Amida's name and his power invested in the name. But this does not mean that the name itself works because of us. The deep truth is that we just avail ourselves of the power of the name and let ourselves be carried by it to the Pure Land. Namo Amida Bu. The Tunnel by Gansen John Welch. As we crawl through samsara's dark tunnel, faced with dangers, deadly distractions, and foolish cravings and attractions, do not despair, do not grieve, but cling tenaciously to Amida's sleeve. And if you sincerely channel all your longings and aspirations in a spirit of hopefulness, not desperation, you will eventually see Amida's great light, destroying all our false fears and endless tears. No longer will we have to fight samsara's ignorance, confusion, greed, hatred and delusion. Because of Amida's inconceivable grace, these are obstacles we will no longer face, and we will be reborn in Sukhavati through Amida's inconceivable wisdom and compassion, forever free from our blind passion. We become Buddhas in Amida's Pure Land. Only then can we extend a powerful helping hand to all sentient beings trapped in samsara's quicksand. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, Amida Buddha. Homage to Amida Buddha. I take refuge in Amida Buddha. This poem was inspired by the following words of Shinran, quoted by Reverend Josho Adrian Cirlea in his excellent book, The Meaning of Faith in Nembutsu in Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, pages 116 and 117. Quote, Tathagata's primal vow surpasses conceptual understanding. It is a design of the wisdom of Buddhas. It is not the design of foolish beings. No one can fathom the wisdom of Buddhas, which surpasses conceptual understanding. Further, with regard to other power, since it is inconceivable Buddha wisdom, the attainment of supreme enlightenment by foolish beings possessed of blind passions comes about through the working shared only by Buddhas. It is not in any way the design of the practicer. Thus, no working is true working. Working that is negated refers to the calculation of person of self-power. Concerning other power, then, no working is true working. End quote. Josho provides the following helpful commentary on these words of Shinran. One who entrusts himself to Amida Buddha realizes that it is through Amida's power that he is saved, that is true working, and not by his own designs and calculations, or through the so-called merits he thinks he has accumulated until now, that is no working. The fact that foolish beings are made to attain perfect enlightenment after birth in the Pure Land, although they are now possessed by blind passions, is beyond conceptual understanding because, as Shinran said, it is related with the inconceivable Buddha wisdom and comes about through the working shared only by Buddhas. This means that only Buddhas know the mechanism of Amida's salvation, and only they can understand it. All we can do is accept it in faith that such foolish people like us, possessed of blind passions, will attain perfect enlightenment once we enter the Pure Land of Amida. Namo Amida Hu.